One day, a pair of children appeared in the northern part of the Arsenian Empire, sent there by the crown prince. They turned out to be a 9-year-old boy and a 12-year-old girl, going to the harsh northern lands. The children were doomed to a painful death, but they managed to survive. Having endured a hard life in the north, the boys expanded their territory and accumulated outstanding military power, strengthening their position in Arsenia. The young archduke was called a miracle worker who achieved a lot over the next 12 years. All this makes the emperor's position precarious, because the boy sharpens his sword to take revenge on the man who sent him to the north. There were many rumors in the political world, but people were sure that no obstacles can separate this couple. We are in a dark place where the young man claims that they are not interested in other people's opinions because they are not afraid of war. He says that he will remove any person who prevents him from finding Lily. With a sharp movement, the young man plunges a knife into the shoulder of an unknown man. Having pulled out the blade, the guy, turning to the wounded man with undisguised irritation, says that he was born with the face of a sinner. Then the young man claims that due to excessive chatter, the man deserves to have his tongue cut out. Still holding the knife in his hand, the youth tells the man that the Grand Duchess saved him. After these words, the young man falls in confusion on the wooden floor, stained with drops of blood. He is pondering how he can be close to the lost heroine. Then out of nowhere, a red-haired girl appears who says that she just wants to be with the man she loves. She extends her hand to Carlisle, encouraging him to return to Castle North and meet his true love. The girl wonders if she can do something about it. We are located in the Northern Empire in Castle Nord. The maid combs the red-haired girl's hair, saying that it won't help because she has very tight curls. Lily's hair always gets tangled when she sleeps, so combing it turns into an ordeal. It is incredibly beautiful, especially with jewelry. While combing Lily's hair, the maid turns to the guy standing next to her, claiming that her ladyship doesn't want more than 2 pieces of jewelry, so there's nothing she can do. Lily tries to take the cookies on the plate. Her hand collides with the hand of the young man who took the cookie earlier. He looked at it for a few seconds, after which he decided to take a small bite. The guy asked the girl if she really wanted to eat these cookies. Lily looked with disappointment at the bitten-off piece that was in the young man's hands. The guy with a smile on his face reminded the girl that he is always the first to try the food that she is going to eat. The young man was the Archduke of the northern part of the Arsenius Empire, and his name was Carlisle Arsenius Nord. Carlisle asked Lily to immediately inform him when she had a desire to eat something. The girl was the Archduchess of the northern part of the empire, and her name was Lillian Batswick Nord. They were the same couple who, according to rumors, shocked the entire North 12 years ago. Lily threw out the cookies Carlisle gave her and said she wanted rectangular ones and chocolate flavor. The Archduke immediately tried it, turning away from the girl so as not to reveal his disgust to her, and she said with irritation that no one was forcing him to eat something he didn't like. Lily promised Carlisle that she would be careful about her food, because she felt guilty that he had to eat dessert every time. The maid, smiling, stood nearby, listening to the Archduke prove to his wife that he must try the food, because it may contain dangerous additives. The maid confirmed Carlisle's words, telling Lillian that there were many poisonings among the nobles. She tried to cheer up the girl, asking not to criticize Carlisle for expressing his concerns this way. Lillian screamed that there was no point in this because they would both take a bite and they would both die. Carlisle was touched by this phrase and was surprised to note that Lillian's look indicated that she was worried about him. Lily did not argue with him, and the young man said that he was immune to poison, so he had the ability to quickly check food. Looking at Lillian, he added that if under some circumstances he did not notice the poison, then he saw no point in living in this world without her. Carlisle whispered in her ear that he dreamed of dying next to his mate. Pulling away, the young man repeated with a smile on his face that he wanted to die with Lily. Turning to her, the Archduke asked if he could do this. Lillian was stupefied by these words, and she thought that Carlisle had gone crazy. The guy arrived north to Castle Nord and became Archduke at the age of only 9 years. In Arsenia, he is known for his fighting abilities, military command, and the fact that he has a beloved and evil wife within the walls of the castle. She's 3 years older than him and came north with him when they were very young. In the morning, the Archduke holds his eternally dissatisfied wife in his arms and then takes her to a room near the office, trying to sit her on his lap, but she always categorically refuses. He comes to her every time during meals, each time repeating strange phrases about how they bite into food. Finishing with his work, he returns to his wife again, hugs her, and takes her into the room. The maid reflects on the fact that in Arsenia, and perhaps even in the whole world, No one can surpass the Archduke in love for his wife. Carlisle, standing opposite Lily, promises that he will definitely come to her after work. He asks her to call him as soon as she wants to eat, or simply when she needs him. Lillian dryly tells him to go to work. The guy turns around with disappointment on his face and leaves. The maid in the background says that she is surprised by the strength of their feelings 12 years later, noting that the guys came to the north as children and have never been separated since then. She tells Lillian that Carlisle could not live without her, despite his powerful strength. The girl indifferently turns to her maid and says that she and the Archduke have been together since childhood, which makes them an inseparable family, asking her not to exaggerate their love anymore. The maid noted that Lillian always answered very coldly and left. Turning to the window, the Archduchess began to reflect on the fact that despite such an early age, they managed to survive and revive Castle Nord. Lillian claims that in all this time, she is no closer to solving the problem that matters most to her, which is terrible for her. Emperor Arsenia had no children, so his younger brother became the heir to the throne. At this time, Carlisle was born. He was the illegitimate son of the emperor. The prince, who did not want to lose his place as heir, sent his nephew at the age of 9 to the barren northern lands. Lillian, remembering all this, wonders why she had to marry Carlisle. The Archduchess recalls how, as a child, she overheard a conversation between her parents. At that moment, the girl's mother asked her husband whether His Highness the Crown Prince had really asked one of their daughters to marry the illegitimate son of the emperor. Lillian's dad replied that this was done in order to send Carlisle to the north, promising that Lily could stay in the capital after the ceremony. His father could not even imagine how long a 9-year-old child could hold out in such a harsh place, but he was pleased with the fact that the emperor will give them full right to rule the north. Despite her young age, Lillian realized that her father was using her to gain power over the northern territories. As a little girl, she could just stand still like a doll and obediently marry so that her father could enjoy the wonderful life of a count. Next, the heroine recalls how she rushed to her dad with requests not to give her to anyone and not to send her to an unknown place. The count raised his voice to the little girl, saying that if she got married, nothing would change for her. He grabbed his daughter by the hand, throwing her into the wall, saying that that child would go to the north and she would stay here. Getting up from the floor, the girl ran after her dad, continuing to say that she did not want to get married, but the count had already locked her in the room. Lillian burst into tears and thought that her nasty father was to blame for all this. The girl imagined herself in a wedding dress next to little Carlisle and told herself that if she married him, she would die in 13 years. During the wedding, Lillian thought that this unpleasant fantasy novel was full of crazy people and that at some point she would die. The girl lived with the thought that Carlisle, known for the ardor of his love feelings, would kill her with his own hands. Lillian called her novel The Princess's Cage. It was an unusual romantic fantasy. Its main character was Princess Yuria, and the main character was Archduke Carlisle. Their love was fierce and cruel. It shed a lot of blood of other heroes of the novel. Little Lilith understood that according to the plot, there was no meaning in these deaths. Just 2 psychopaths in the name of love killed everyone who interfered with them. The girl wondered what the author was thinking about when he wrote this terrible novel. The main characters killed out of jealousy, when someone stood in their way, or when someone simply caught their eye at the wrong time. Ultimately, in order to protect Princess Yuria of the Kingdom of Amarin, Carlisle killed his father, who was the emperor, and became the ruler himself, gaining enormous power. After all the murders, they came across Lillian Batsvik, who became a thorn in Yuri's side, since she, being Carlisle's wife, was jealous of all living things. Ultimately, the girl faced death. Despite the fact that they had not seen each other for 13 years since the wedding, this was done because he wanted to prove his endless love to Yuria. Little Lillian was killed by the thought that she would die at the hands of her husband Carlisle. She said goodbye to the world, imagining how she would be sacrificed by 2 psychopaths. When the girl found herself at her wedding, meeting the gaze of little Carlisle, she was sure that the sun was hiding in his open eyes. It seemed to her that from his steps the trees trembled with fear, so much so that the forest let out a cry. And the reason for this was his sword, covered in blood. Lillian tried to convince herself that he was just a child, small and defenseless. At the ceremony, Carlisle stuttered and told the girl that her dress was very beautiful. Lillian thanked him dryly. The boy looked at Lily lovingly, meeting her indifferent gaze. He asked if she knew what they were doing today. Lillian said that they were getting married, asking if Carlisle knew what a wedding was, to which the naive boy replied that it was when they both put on beautiful clothes. Then the surprised Lillian found out that does he know where the north is? Carlisle only replied that it was cold there. The girl realized that this child would be sent to the north immediately after the wedding, and he didn't even know what that was. Lillian noted that Carlisle has speech problems. She thought it was obvious because no one cared about the emperor's illegitimate son. But this was not the only reason, because the crown prince cannot afford to have Carlisle around, because he too can lay claim to the throne. When the girl begged her father not to marry her, he threatened Lillian that then he would send her younger sister. The count asked Lily what she would do if her 6-year-old sister got married. Reflecting on all this during the ceremony, Lillian remembered her novel, in which Carlisle, a small animal, had to become involved in the affairs of adults as a child. Suddenly the thought came to her that everything could turn out differently, and she would have the opportunity to raise the boy well. Looking at him, she decided that he would not become that cruel Carlisle from the novel. She imagined how she would make him a cool protagonist on a white horse. At that same second, Lillian turned to Carlisle and told him to repeat after her. After listening to the girl say that she hates blood, murder, and war, the boy repeated after her. This continued on and on. As an adult, Lillian said that she loved peace, and murder was a meaningless activity. The young man repeated all the words of the girl. Then she said that she valued life, and the guy repeated it again. Lillian praised Carlisle, who constantly asked if he had done well. The girl stroked the guy's hair, and he asked her to praise him, which she did. Standing opposite Carlisle, the matured Lillian told him that one day he would fall in love with a person with whom he would not have an arranged marriage. Like with her, the main character warned the guy that there is a kind of love that drives you crazy, making people who hate blood, murder, and war eventually take up the knife. Cupping Carlisle's face, she asked him if he would do the same, if he would not kill innocents. The disappointed young man dryly agreed with his beloved, saying that he heard her. While working, Carlisle reflects on how, as a child, he would cuddle Lily and fall asleep with her. At a certain point, when they were supposed to sleep separately, the boy cried and begged the girl to sleep with him. He looked at her with a frightened look, after which Lily took pity and let Carlisle into her room. After he grew older, she did not allow such things. This is why Carlisle didn't want to grow up. When he was younger, Lily was very kind to him. As Lillian grew older, she began to tell him that you should only share a bedroom with the person you truly love. She explained to Carlisle that he had already grown up and they would sleep separately. The guy did not understand this, claiming that they were a couple, and the heroine again repeated to him that when he fell in love with another person, he would understand why she behaved this way. Carlisle was sure that he didn't want to fall in love with someone. Lillian thought that summer would soon come. That very time when Yuri and the Archduke would meet and fall in love with each other. Carlisle, for his part, just wanted to live with Lily like a normal couple who have children, share a bedroom, and grow old together. Lillian planned to speed up the divorce process by giving Yuri a well-mannered man. It seemed to her that then no one would be jealous of her and eventually kill her. Carlisle didn't like living with Lillian as a married couple. Lillian knew that he grew up to be a good man, but she was still worried about what would happen to him in the future. During these thoughts, Lily was approached by a blonde guardsman who said that he had carried out her orders. Lillian thought that Carlisle's love for Yuria was a hidden plan to turn him into an emperor. But every time she talked about love, the Archduke became upset. It is unknown whether he will be able to circumvent his bad fate. Sit at the table, Carlisle dropped his pen and stained the carpet with ink. He was worried about not being able to tell Lily that he liked her. The hero looked at his hands and was sure that this was love. One famous, entertaining story about a young northern archduke and his wife took place 7 years ago. Green monsters similar to orcs, angered by severe frosts, attacked the north, sparing no one in their path, so people had no choice but to flee. Meanwhile, in order to reduce human suffering and the number of victims, a little boy and girl ordered the evacuation of the residents first, and only then themselves. It was thanks to the young archduke and his wife that people were able to escape, while an adult fair-haired guy was on his knees asking for forgiveness from small children. He was embarrassed to admit his fear that he would lose all his people in the north. He was ashamed that he could not protect the children and that he had to leave them alone. Carlisle refuted all his words, saying that he was giving the order as the master of Castle Nord. He also added that no one could contradict the order. The wounded Lillian, hugging her small and blood-stained husband, promised that they would definitely survive. A 15-year-old bright-eyed girl, holding a dying boy in her arms, spoke of faith and salvation. It was on that day that she won the faith of the Northerners. And now the Archduchess is thinking about how to get a divorce. Lillian lives in fear that Carlisle, whom she raised so well, will one day go crazy. She is afraid that he will fall in love with Yuria and kill Lily, just like in her own fictional novel. Therefore, she decided to get a divorce in any way. She understood that there was no reason for separation, none at all. The blonde guardsman, holding a piece of paper in his hand, reported to the Archduchess that the problems with the equipment during the distribution of food had been resolved. Lillian, sitting at the table in her office, reflected on why Carlyle, contrary to her expectations, turned out to be such a faithful husband. Perhaps she had some talent for raising children. She was sure that Carlyle valued her very much. Lillian tried to convince herself that she raised Carlyle so well that even if he fell in love with Yuria, he would not be able to kill his official wife. Lily believed that then the Archduke, in order to protect his beloved, would not want to lay claim to the throne of the Emperor. If all this turned out to be true, then perhaps he would be able to circumvent his evil fate. Interrupting the Archduchess's thoughts, the blonde guardsman summed up everything regarding the distribution of provisions. Lillian, embarrassed to realize that she had been in her own thoughts all this time, took the sheet of paper from his hands. She read that food would be distributed again during the summer months. She asked the guardsman to document this and monitor the food supply in each village. The guy was very surprised at the Archduchess's request. He asked her if this was really necessary, because she usually did this personally. Stunned, Lillian confirmed his words, but then added that the castle had become much calmer, so if another Archduchess appeared, she would be able to cope with it. Her words were interrupted by the noise of a falling and breaking vase. While the maid Cynthia and the guard looked at Lillian in horror, she asked the worker if she was hurt. Having asked for a broom, the Archduchess was met with silence. The guard was the first to break it, dumbfoundedly asking Lillian if she had really decided to betray his lordship. The surprised Archduchess denied his words. The guardsman tried to find out the reason for her words. He thought that Lily had noticed some signs of betrayal in Carlyle. The Archduchess asked why the guys were looking at her so frighteningly. The subordinates insisted that no scoundrel could take the place of the Archduchess. They said that they would take care of everything themselves. Cynthia added that if they quietly corrected everything, then his lordship would quickly return to normal. The maid was horrified to find out how the Archduke could just think about betrayal. The guard asked for an order. He only said that he would need all the winter soldiers to subdue his lordship. At this time, an excited Carlyle entered the room. He heard a vase break and wanted to know what happened. Confused, Lillian said there had been a small misunderstanding. Carlyle repeated his question about what happened. The subordinates looked at the floor disapprovingly. Seeing the fragments, the Archduke moved his wife away from them and ordered Cynthia to remove them so that no one would get hurt. Cynthia stood motionless, looking down. Carlyle called out to her incomprehensibly. The trembling maid sharply raised her tear-stained eyes to the Archduke and began to shout at him. She scolded him for wanting to leave her ladyship. It seems that Cynthia has already thought a lot in her head. She recalled that Carlyle had gone through many hardships with her ladyship as a child. The stunned Archduke continued to listen as the maid scolded him for the fact that, having adapted, he decided to leave his wife and find another woman. Lillian, driven into a corner, looked at her subordinates with condemnation. Carlyle asked Lily in confusion why he had to leave her. He asked who told her such nonsense. The puzzled Archduchess tried to justify herself, saying that everything was not like that at all. Thinking about how to get out of this situation, she began to say incoherent phrases about children. Then she cried out that a child might appear. Hearing this, all three looked in stupor at the Archduchess, who added that they were a married couple. The indifferent Lillian began to say that, just in case, the children could later be taught what the Archduchess was doing. Carlyle immediately wrapped Lillian in his arms and lifted him into his arms. He was very pleased with the fact that Lily was having such thoughts. He was delighted that she was thinking about their future child. The calm Cynthia began to say that any child who looked like his parents, regardless of whether it was a boy or a girl, would be a treasure in this castle. The guardsman said that he would be ready to sacrifice his life for the sake of their child. Everyone was very pleased with the words of the Archduchess. In Carlyle's arms, Lillian had an enlightenment. She realized that by saying she wanted to break up, she would get into big problems. But that didn't mean that she needed to leave this idea. She didn't want to die. Lillian, throwing on a black cloak, went to some tavern. She threw a bag of gold coins at the blonde woman's feet, saying that she had put in enough. The girl with the eye patch was delighted by the fact that such a noble person had appeared in such a place. She asked why Lillian would come to such a place for mercenaries, if she could ask the Archduke for anything and he would do everything. The irritated Archduchess asked to stop this chatter, asking whether the one-eyed woman had people or not. She quickly grabbed the bag, saying that she would try to find someone suitable, since the benefactor of the North himself was asking her about it. The one-eyed woman entered the dark room. She turned to a fair-haired guy with blue eyes, who was sitting in a hood with a knife in his hand, and said that the order had arrived. The woman added that this was exactly what he had been waiting for so long. The guy looked at her indifferently. In an unknown location, a beautiful red-haired girl sits at her desk with a piece of paper. A guy with the same red hair comes into the room and asks who Firm is writing to. The girl replies that she is writing to her sister and wants her to come before summer. She says that she doesn't understand why, even after reconciliation with her father, her sister doesn't come more often. Firm believes that her son-in-law does not allow her. The guy doubted that this was so. It seemed to the young man that she simply did not want to come because of her father. The guy with red hair was called Ian, and he was the younger brother, as well as the twin of Lillian Batswick. He said that they agreed to a deal so that the North passed to them. But this is still the land of the son-in-law. So the father, every time Lillian comes, does not miss the opportunity to remind her of this. The girl agrees, but claims that she would like to see her sister more often. Firm is Lillian's younger sister. They are also twins. Ian asks his sister to stop writing letters to Lily, because it will only make it harder for her. Firm does not agree with her brother, saying that he does not understand anything. It seems to her that with the help of these letters, their family ties are strengthened. We return to the castle. Lillian holds a letter in her hands. Carlisle, sitting next to her, asks what is written in it. Lily answered with indifference that there is nothing special in it, just her family asking how she is doing and wanting to meet. The guy reminds his wife that the twins are dear to her and offers to go to them, saying that he will take care of the castle in her absence. Lillian gave the letter into his hands and said that she would not go anywhere because every visit she quarrels with her father. Carlisle looked at the girl with understanding, saying that he realized that it was because of him. Lillian was very disappointed by these words. She tried to convince her husband otherwise. Lily told Carlisle that she in no way regretted marrying him. He, amazed by her words, said the same thing. Carlisle added that he would never regret this in the future, promising that he would be her husband for the rest of his life. He reminded Lillian that she herself had started talking about the child, suggesting that she did not take her husband lightly. Lily was disappointed by this outcome of events. She again brought up the topic of how Carlisle would one day love someone other than her. The Archduchess reminded him how, as a child, she had said that they were in an arranged marriage, and that he liked her like a chick's mother, whom he followed, so having a child was pointless. The Archduke grabbed her hand and said that this time Lillian was wrong. Carlisle confessed his love to her. He said that he doesn't need anyone else, that Lily is the one who is always there for him. Carlisle again said that he wants them to be next to each other for the rest of their lives. He asked why Lillian is so insistent that he will love someone else. The disappointed girl told him that this is not love. She tried to explain to him the true meaning of this word. The Archduke interrupted her, saying that if a person goes crazy when in love, then he already went crazy because of her. He started shouting that he doesn't kill people, doesn't start wars just because Lillian doesn't like it. As long as he doesn't do things like that, she stays by his side, that's all. Leaning on the girl, he said that he would take her word for it that this feeling was not love at all, only if she continued to tell him that he did not love her. Lying on top of Lily on the bed, he added that he had no intention of letting her go. Evil Lillian believed that in this way, Carlisle was trying to force her to spend the night with him. She pushed him away and told him to go to his room to sleep. The upset Archduke said that he wanted to show Lily something and asked permission to visit her tomorrow morning. Smiling, Lily noted that even if she told him not to come, their subordinates would still open the door for him. The guys said goodbye and wished each other good night. Lounging on the bed, Lillian began to think that she raised Carlisle well, since he chooses such pleasant words. Remembering his confession, she said that Yuria, as his future wife, was very lucky, and joked that she should not be jealous, but pay money for such a good upbringing. Lillian was thinking that Carlisle was supposed to meet Yuri in the summer, and now it was spring, so there wouldn't be much time left. The Archduchess remembered her trip to the tavern. The angry, one-eyed woman was cursing about the fact that she was not able to find a person who could help Lillian escape from the Archduke Severus. She said that no one would want to risk their own life, even if they paid a lot of money. Lillian recalled that they were trained mercenaries, adding that Carlisle was not at all scary. The girl tried to put pressure on her dignity. The woman did not know how to respond to this. Lillian offered to sell certain information. The stunned one-eyed woman did not understand what she was leading to. Lily said that an uprising would soon begin in the kingdom of Amarin. She did not continue, saying that this was the initial payment, and the old woman would find out the rest if the girl managed to escape. The woman said that if this is true, then such information is very valuable. The old woman clarified how she could trust Lily. Lillian replied that the one-eyed woman could ask her superiors about it. These people know that the Archduchess is the best at providing information. The woman with the eye patch agreed to send Lily a mercenary, and Lillian, in turn, found out his name. Lying on the bed, the Archduchess remembered his name. His name was Eugene Dynine. Lillian knew it would be difficult, but she hoped it would work out because she planned to escape at midnight. Lily woke up in Carlisle's arms. She was very cold even though she was wearing a blanket. The Archduke did not expect her to wake up, thinking that the wind would not be able to penetrate under the covers. Lily asked what they were doing in the training room. Carlisle said that Rixie gave birth at dawn. The Archduchess was stunned by this news. Carlisle knew Lily would like it, so he brought her here. He said the horse was named Lily. Lillian objected that her name was not suitable, and since he named him Rixie, now it was her turn to name the horse Carlisle. The Archduke was touched by this. He said that in this situation, they would think about the names of the children together. He would like the first child to be a girl. Lillian thought that she was not going to have children at all. Carlisle said that if their daughter had her mother's hair, she would look like a carrot. Lily mused that he was unlucky because Yuri had blonde hair. Lillian asked Carlisle to let her go. He said that he did not take her shoes, so she would have to be patient. When asked why he did this, Carlisle replied that there was no point in the shoes because he could have just carried them. A blonde guy appeared in front of the guys. He laid things under Lillian's feet and said that she could lean on him. Lily thanked him, saying that this was not necessary because his clothes might get dirty. The girl asked his name. He replied that his name was Eugene Dynine and asked that they simply call him Eugene. Lillian was shocked. She remembered how she had crossed eyes with this guy in a tavern. Eugene Dynine will have to help her ladyship escape. While working, the maids discussed that Lillian has been in a very good mood lately. They say that she comes to the stable every day, as if some treasure is hidden there. One of the workers does not understand why, with such a love for animals, the Archduchess does not come look at the foal Rixie. The second one claims that Lily has a friend in the castle. They discuss the man who recently appeared in the palace and note that he and Lillian have a good relationship. The girls don't understand how the Archduke can just watch this. Lillian and Eugene were in the greenhouse. The guy complimented the girl, saying that she was unusually bright today. Lily asked not to embarrass her by blaming everything on her favorite bright dress. Eugene doubted this, saying that Lillian looked great anyway and he couldn't take his eyes off her. He would like to capture this moment for the rest of his life. Behind the guys stood a confused Cynthia. This scared Lillian very much. On one side of her stood a young man enjoying his first love, and on the other side stood a 20-year-old maid who could cast a curse with just a glance that Lily felt would burn a hole in the back of her head. The Archduchess presented the scenario of her separation from Carlisle. She meets the groom and decides to run away from her Archduke. It will be a shame, and Carlisle will be heartbroken. He, like a lost child whose mother left him, will have to walk around, and then in time he will meet Yuria, with whom he will fall in love. Then his strong attachment to the Archduchess will disappear, which is why the mercenary plays shameless love, following the script. Lillian, realizing this, is surprised that he looks so in love. It scares her. Lily starts a dialogue with him, but does not dare to continue it. Then Eugene takes her hand and kisses her. He says he has all his attention on her so she can talk when it's convenient for her. Lillian is very strained by these words, because the dumbfounded maid is standing behind her. When the Archduchess returned from the greenhouse, an excited Cynthia ran up to her. She asked why Lillian had become so close to this groom, because he had a very unclean and obscene look that was noticeable to everyone around. Lily turned to the maid with a smile, rejoicing at how well Eugene was able to play, because it seemed to her that no one would fall for it. With a sharp change in emotion, Lillian turned rudely to Cynthia. The Archduchess said that she should not give anyone permission to look at her. Then she added that they both exchanged such glances, as if they were lovers. The disappointed maid said that she could not even think that Lily could betray his lordship. The indifferent Archduchess confirmed that she had betrayed Carlisle. Then she added that everything would be fine, because they were nothing more than ordinary marriage partners. Lillian states that Carlisle understands that one day he will meet the man of his destiny. She says that each of them has their own personal path, and the moment of separation is slowly approaching. Cynthia became angry and shouted that Lily had no personal ways. She said that every time she was sad to hear Lily talk about a simple and meaningless marriage partnership. Cynthia had the feeling that Lillian was going to part with not only his lordship, but also the people of Castle Nord. The maid tries to convince the Archduchess that she loves Carlisle. Lillian denies this, saying that he is like a little brother to her. Cynthia stood her ground. She reminded the Archduchess of how Carlisle had given her the ring. He said Lillian Batswick Nord opened the world to him. The maid noted that they always remember this moment and talk about it. Everyone in the castle is sure that they sincerely love and care for each other. Lillian tells Cynthia that thoughts can change, because it happens that couples break up after being together for a very long time. The maid grabs the Archduchess's hand and says that if they break up, the Archduke will look for her. She asks her not to leave Carlisle. Cynthia tries to convince Lillian that the couple have lost interest in each other because they were both busy. The maid says that today they will need to spend time alone and is going to hint about this to Carlisle. Lily says that this is not necessary. The Archduchess believes that if she manages to escape at night, she will need to say goodbye to Cynthia, who is so worried about her. Lillian becomes lost in her thoughts, realizing that it will be difficult for her to part with everyone, and that she will have to give the castle into the hands of another woman simply because of bad luck. Suddenly, Eugene appeared behind her. He asks why Lillian regrets that he came here. He adds that he himself is worried about his life, given that her husband is looking at him as if he is about to tear him apart. Lillian looked at him in confusion. Eugene leaned on the table, listening to Lillian reproach him for being afraid. Although only a few days have passed, which makes him not like a mercenary, the guy is trying to understand why the Archduchess is trying to escape, because she is very loved here. Eugene took the girl by the chin and said that she wasn't feeling bad here at all. Lily asked to let her go and asked where that innocent young man had gone. Eugene put on his best face and asked if this was what Lillian was talking about. The girl was confused by this, of course. She did not expect him to be the same charming guy he plays, but he was clearly not her type. It turned out that it was all his mask. Lillian thought it was terrible if all mercenaries behaved the same way. Taking an apple from the table, Eugene announced that he wanted to change the plan. Lily said that they didn't have much time, so it was impossible to redo anything. The guy insisted that he needed to go to the border of the Monsterlands. Lillian tried to find out why he needed prisoners on the front line. The young man replied that this was his fate for seducing the Archduchess. It's a coincidence that Carlisle sends him there just when he began to communicate well with Lily. An irritated Lillian tried to prove that the Archduke, because of his feelings, would not send an innocent person to such a terrible place. The young man said that when they first met, Carlisle looked at him with such hatred that if a look could kill, he would have done it right away, arrogantly noting that he believed his Archduchess and saying that then he didn't know why he would go there. Eugene took a bite of the apple that belonged to Lily. He didn't care much. He was upset that he would have to ruin their marriage. Lily said that Carlisle usually listens to her, so she will make sure he doesn't interfere with the plan. Eugene, looking thoughtfully to the side, agreed with the girl. The door handle jerked sharply, and a voice was heard looking for Lily. It turned out to be Carlisle, who was very concerned that Lillian was not alone in the room. Eugene, in shock, dropped his apple. Carlisle, standing outside the door, was lost in thought, noting that Lily had allowed this groom to bandage her wounded arm. While in the greenhouse, the young man, covering the girl's wound, smiled at her warmly. For Carlisle, Lily never allowed her to help with her wounds, and it frustrated him. As a child, after they helped people evacuate, little Lillian said that the Archduke got it more than she did. Lily treated Carlisle's wounds, but did not allow him to touch her own. The guy regretted this, but understood that Lillian always wanted to look strong, since she was an Archduchess. He also understood the significance of the moment when a person has the opportunity to show his vulnerability to someone. As much as he himself looked weak in front of Lillian, the fact that she could appear vulnerable in front of someone truly scared Carlisle. It was the first time he wiped away his own tears. He was afraid of losing his love, but at the same time his anger towards the groom only grew. Standing outside the door, Carlisle tried to find out who was in the room with Lily, and if he could come in. Lily tried to get Eugene out the other door, but first she needed to change. An enraged Carlisle burst into the room, but apart from the embarrassed Lily, he did not notice anyone. Eugene was hiding on the ledge outside the window. Lillian confronted her husband about the fact that he opened the door so abruptly, despite the fact that she was changing clothes. In her thoughts, the girl was incredibly happy that he didn't catch them. Carlisle began to apologize to Lily with worry, saying that he heard a man's voice and was worried about her. Lillian just couldn't stay mad at him. Standing in a raincoat on the street and looking out the window, Eugene thought that he almost died because of this red-haired woman. He tried to convince himself that Lily was not a beauty, but an ordinary woman. Carlisle at this time said that lately he had been feeling a strong heaviness in his body, which was causing a headache, and he came to Lillian because he was very tired. The girl ran her hands over his face and did not notice the heat, specifying why he came. Meeting Carlisle's gaze, Lily said that he could use a good rest. Wrapping his arms around the girl, the Archduke said that this was exactly what he was going to do, but in her presence. Embarrassed, Lillian said that he should get sick alone, asking if he wanted to get her permission to do so. Leaning towards the girl, Carlisle confirmed her words. He kissed her tenderly and noted that he could only get sick when Lily was nearby. He told Lily that she had been too cold towards him lately, noting that whenever she had free time, Lily went to the stables to play. Remembering Eugene, Lily asked her husband if Carlisle had done anything wrong. She reminded him that they themselves had created a law that only prisoners or well-trained soldiers could be on guard against monsters, and that even the Archduke had no right to break it. Smiling, Carlisle said in his head that he did it out of greed for his wife. It seemed to him that this was the kind of madness for which he could kill, because he really didn't want his beloved Lillian to worry about that guy. Carlisle came to the conclusion that he simply needed to kill that groom without Lily even finding out about it. Returning from his thoughts, he told Lillian that he did not understand what she was talking about, and promised that he would definitely check whether all of the people sent to the border were criminals. Perhaps there was simply some error in the lists. Reassured, Lillian rejoiced in the knowledge that her child would never do such a thing. Carlisle recalled that, as soon as he entered, he immediately said about his poor health, clarifying whether Lillian really wanted to continue talking about the groom. At that moment, when Lily apologized and asked how bad the Archduke was, and whether he would rest tomorrow, he kissed her hand, saying that he would have to work tomorrow. Pushing the girl onto the bed, he said that Lillian asked him to check something. Lillian looked at her husband defiantly, thinking that recently he had been acting strangely. Carlisle, lying on top of his wife, asked if he was handsome, to which Lily replied that he was the most handsome. The Archduke began to smell the girl, saying that she had a very pleasant aroma. Taking Lillian's locks of hair in his hands, he asked if he could style her hair tomorrow. After that, leaning towards her lips, he asked Lily to allow him to sleep in her room, holding hands. Hearing this, Lillian jumped out of bed. Carlisle tried to understand why she didn't want to sleep with him. Yes, the groom looked good, but was the Archduke really not good enough to spend time with Lily? He thought that Lillian was tired of him. The words got stuck in Carlisle's throat, so he couldn't say anything. Before this, he thought that he was doing everything that Lillian liked, but this time he was not sure that he could say anything correctly. Lillian really wanted him to stop, because if he continued doing this, she might change her mind. She needed to pull herself together. It was the 10th day since Carlisle, under the pretext of feeling unwell, sneaked into Lillian's room. The day after Eugene and Lily set a date for their escape, he disappeared. Then Carlisle came with excuses and said that he was sent to the screen before he had time to check the list. He apologized for this and said that when Eugene returned, he would send him home immediately. But of course, that wasn't Lillian's biggest problem. Her biggest problem was that she couldn't resist Carlisle's charm. Lying on the same bed with the Archduke, Lillian did not understand how she could so shamelessly decide to attack her own child. Satisfied, Carlisle rested his head on his hand and asked if Lily slept well. For Lillian, the most shameless thing was her heart, which screamed that it did not want to give up this charm, but to enjoy it. And the essence of this was that she did not need to let him into her room from the very beginning. Lying on the bed, Carlisle asked why Lily closed her eyes, to which she replied that he was the main reason that her heart had been tap dancing all night, and that, in fact, it also wants to rest. The guy asked why she didn't want to look at him, and the girl ordered him not to feel her feelings. Carlisle said that he needed to talk to Lillian about something important, asking if she would continue to lie with her eyes closed, and at that time, Lily was thinking that she had raised this guy completely differently. The girl opened her eyes, asking to be allowed to breathe normally, and asked what her husband wanted to talk about. Lowering his gaze, Carlisle reported that the Prince of the Kingdom of Amarin had died in the borderlands. The Archduke then added that for this reason an uprising had begun on the border, and he, as the Northern Duke, would have to go. Lillian realized that the civil war had begun in Amarin. She thought only about escaping and completely forgot about it, but Carlisle could be in danger. He had to return unharmed, since he was supposed to meet with Yuria later. Frustrated, Lily asked why wars exist, accusing people of being cruel. A smiling Carlisle said that he too did not like war, adding that Lillian herself had taught him that the Archduke should only draw his sword when truly necessary. Lily doubted that he didn't like it, because he talked about it with a smile on his face. Looking at Lillian, Carlisle said that he just liked that she was worried about him. He promised her to return as soon as possible and hoped that she would be very worried about him. Only under such circumstances could he cope with everything. Lillian upsetly clarified that in such situations, people, on the contrary, tell others not to chew. Then Carlisle kissed her hand and asked her to just think about him. Lillian was discouraged by this. Carlisle hoped that when he returned, Lily would kiss him too. Standing at the window, Lillian thought about what had happened. She was sure that Carlisle, like a sly fox, believed that she would fall in love with him if he behaved like this, but it really affected her more than she thought. Lily used to ignore Carlisle, but now she couldn't, and of course, she began to doubt. As an archduchess, it was very difficult for her to part with her castle, as she was very attached to it. She was an ordinary woman who was not swayed by the ardent advances of a passionate man. I wonder what a rational person would choose when his own fate is at stake, because perhaps he and Carlisle could actually be a good, ordinary couple who loves and cares for each other. But if she introduces the Archduke to another woman and marries him, the people in the castle and Carlisle himself will consider Lillian a traitor. He has always been honest and only looked at Lily. Perhaps it will not be so easy for him to fall in love with Yuri. There was a possibility that the end would be different, and Carlisle and Yuria would not fall in love with each other. Perhaps the relationship between Lillian and the main character had a chance. She so wanted to live happily in this place, and she wanted to be Carlisle's lover. Therefore, Lily came to the conclusion that she was not going to run away. She decided to inform Eugene about this when he returned. Lillian decided to tell Carlisle everything she could, because she was not one of those who would suffer alone. She figured that she could discuss this with him, and then they would both avoid this evil fate, so Lily would trust him and wait patiently in the castle. Two guys who found themselves in the mountains noticed some kind of raincoat. Up close, it turned out that it was a man. Coming closer, the guys decided to check if he was alive. The man who woke up, confused, asked where he was, and in response received only warnings that it would soon get dark, and that if he went down past the castle, he could stumble upon the village. The fair-haired guy clarified whether we were talking about Castle Nord. He was surprised at himself, because before that, he had never thought that he could get to the castle on his own. Having touched the tower windowsill, the guy thought that he would die from cold or hunger. Eugene decided that he should charge a lot for his services, because in the coldest region in the north, instead of food, there could be hay for horses. The guy thought about what Lillian could have done that made him sent to the border, because there is nothing wrong with a woman looking at a handsome young man from time to time. Eugene wondered how Carlisle could even have received the title of Northern Archduke if the slightest jealousy from this stupid child could cause such a strong reaction. The guy threw the rope onto the roof and began to climb down to the desired window, thinking that the most important thing at that moment was saving Lillian. This would at least be some kind of revenge for Carlisle. Looking at his watch, Eugene realized that the time for their meeting had almost arrived. Grinning, he said that if he comes, and the girl says that the deal fell through, then let him think what he wants, because he won't just leave what happened to this couple. Lillian tried to understand the reason why she believed that she could not be with Carlisle. Perhaps it was due to the fact that he was supposed to fall in love with Yuri, or because Lily herself wanted to escape her evil fate, or maybe she was something completely different. As a child, the Archduchess made sure that the boy was always dressed warmly. Carlisle couldn't get sick, and since there was no cure for colds in the north, they had to sleep close to each other. As a result, Lillian became brave out of normal and real fear. The night the girl slept with Carlisle in the north was the first time she saw this woman. The girl didn't understand who it was and why she was looking at her without blinking. She thought it was very creepy. Without saying anything, the woman approached Lillian. A voice sounded in the girl's head, which insisted that if she crossed the line again, she would not be able to go unpunished. She would not allow it. It seemed that this icy gaze told Lillian exactly this, and she did not understand why she could not wake up from this dream again. She wanted to know who this woman was who was intimidating her, whether she had been sent by this evil man, or maybe this was a character from Lily's own novel, but the girl was scared. When she won the hearts of the people at Castle Nord, when she ignored her father's letters asking her to return, and when they first managed to expand the territory by establishing diplomatic relations, Lillian each time had to find herself locked in a prison of dreams, withstanding the gaze of a woman unable to move. As the days passed, Lily realized that she was asking that she, like the character from The Princess's Cage, simply exist without causing problems. One got the feeling that she was the keeper of the novel, only unnoticed and quietly. Lily had to exist as the daughter of an earl, who would one day be abandoned by Carlisle, and the woman then no longer appeared in her dreams. Instinctively, Lillian knew that if she went against her will, it would not end well. Entering the room, Lily heard strange sounds. Turning around, she saw in front of her a copy of herself, who was the woman from the dreams. She insisted that the heroine longed for more than her role required. Lillian didn't understand how she could appear in front of her now, but she knew for sure that the woman was aware that she was planning to run away with Eugene. The heroine from the dreams, gritting her teeth, said that Lily should have been killed from the very beginning. As she approached, she grabbed her by the neck in an attempt to strangle her. At that moment, someone's hand pierced the glass from the outside. It turned out to be Eugene, who asked Lillian not to say that she was refusing to escape. Seeing her frightened face, he thought that she was afraid that her husband would come for her. The fact that the Archduchess could be afraid surprised the guy, so he decided to calm her down, saying that he would hold her, ensuring her safety. While Lillian was remembering the pleasant moments associated with her subordinates and with Carlisle, Eugene demanded that she say that she wanted to escape, promising that then he would get her out of here. Looking at him, Lillian thought about how as a child she checked to see if her husband had a cough and fever, cursing those who were able to send a small child to the north. At that moment, little Carlisle simply asked her to be there and not leave him. Lily, saying that he was stupid for being able to think about such a thing, and that the milk on his lips had not yet dried, promised him that she would never leave him. She admitted that she really did not want to go to the north with her husband, but said that it was not Carlisle's fault, explaining that she was unlucky with her father and that she was too soft-hearted. She tried to cheer him up by telling him that no matter how hard it was for them, their lives would be more fun than when they lived in mansions. She was glad that Carlisle was not like her dad and always listened to her. The frightened girl, with tears in her eyes, began to beg Eugene to take her away from this castle. Mentally turning to Carlisle, it seemed to her that everyone in her own fictional novel was accusing Lillian of loving her. She was tired of gritting her teeth and challenging her fate. At this time, Carlisle had a bad feeling and decided that he urgently needed to pack his things and return. Escaping from the castle, Lil thanked Carlisle for brightening up her story and asked her to now follow hers. As a result, Lillian Batswick Nord, while the Duke was at war, left the castle at midnight. The maid read a letter in which Lily apologized to Carlisle and said that she had decided to leave with her lover Eugene, assuring that her husband would find a more loving and wise woman than her. The heroine hoped that his pain would be short-lived. The maid decided that it was necessary to report this to the Archduke. The next day, a meeting was held in the kingdom of Amarin. The unknown man swore at his wife, shouting that if they left their son, they would be given refuge in the Arsenian Empire. She did not understand how she could abandon her own son, who was only 5 years old. The woman asked to let her go home with him, promising that nothing would happen. The man continued to yell at his wife, saying that even though this child has royal blood, she was asking too much. Disappointed, Carlisle was thinking about his Lily, who looks like a carrot when she's angry. He didn't understand why she didn't like carrots so much, which she looked so much like, although maybe that was the reason. He thought that in the future their child would definitely look like a little carrot, although he did not know what he would need to do for him. People at the meeting tried to get his attention by asking if he was listening to them. He asked them not to worry about it and to continue. In his thoughts, the man called Carlisle an impudent bastard, not understanding how a man with imperial blood flowing in him could look so calmly at what awaits a person. But he realized that without the help of the Archduke, they would suffer great losses, and that if he showed his hostility towards the Northern Archduke, who had the most powerful military force, it would not lead to anything good. He decided to continue, saying that he would provide shelter anyway. The king's guard abruptly interrupted his words, addressing his lordship. He approached Carlisle, saying that he urgently needed to convey certain information. The man became indignant, shouting that the soldier did not dare to interfere in state affairs. Carlisle quickly silenced him. Hearing the words spoken by the guardsman in his ear, the Archduke jumped up and ordered everything to be prepared for his departure to Castle Nord. The man looked at Carlisle in horror, not understanding what was happening. He jumped up and shouted that they weren't done talking yet. The Archduke replied that this kindergarten would take about 2 days, and that he saw no reason why he should participate in the affairs of the Amarin kingdom. Carlisle added that he had come all this way to listen to their long story only because his wife did not want war, and that if they did anything stupid in his absence, he would rebel against the kingdom. Slamming the door, the Archduke, along with his faithful guardsmen, went to Castle Nord, thinking about Lily. During Eugene and Lily's ride, One of the horse managers said that he had heard rumors that the Archduchess of the North had escaped during the night, using the help of some man who had smuggled her in. The first driver noted that he did not see the reason why everyone was making a mountain out of a molehill, because perhaps the Duchess would return. The second added that she didn't even divorce her husband, but simply ran away. Lily, who was riding with Eugene in this cart undercover, told him that she too would prefer to get a divorce. The young man agreed with her, but said that Carlisle did not look like a man who would give her a divorce. He also added that he was very surprised that the Archduke did not tie her up after sending him to the border. Lillian didn't understand what he was talking about, because his words made her husband seem like some kind of terrible psychopath, and Carlisle said that he was not aware that Eugene was sent there and that it was a mistake. Eugene noticed that Lily worried about her cold husband even more than he thought. Turning away, Lily asked how much it would hurt him. Eugene told her to think in whatever way was most convenient for her, and added that he would not express his opinion on this matter, thinking that Lily perceived the Archduke as if she were his mother. The young man noted that since she decided to run away, she needed to be more ruthless. Lillian adjusted her hood in disappointment. Eugene asked why she even ran away from her husband if it was so difficult for her. Lillian came to the conclusion that the guy was right, and now she didn't need to think about Carlisle, because at the moment, she was more interested in that unknown woman who scared her in the room. The heroine thought that these were just her dreams, but then she showed up in reality, which led Lily to the idea that in the end, she could harm Carlisle with her actions, because now everything is not going according to the novel. Lillian came to the conclusion that she did not play any important role anyway, and perhaps this woman was somehow connected with the bad hero, but who she was remained unknown. Carlisle's wife, who faced a difficult fate in the novel, was named Lillian Batswick Nord. Despite obstacles such as evil characters and fate, while continuing to court Carlisle, Lily felt that their lives were being threatened by the red-haired woman. As a result, for the greater good, Lily decided to leave her husband. Next, Eugene and Lily went undercover to the hotel. The smiling grandmother asked if they would like to book a room for two. Eugene threw a bag of money on her table and asked if it was enough to spend the night. Grandma got nervous, saying it was too much, even with the tip. The guys insisted on their own, asking to give them some quiet room. Eugene, with a wig on his head, played the most exemplary family man, holding Lily by the shoulders and claiming that his wife was pregnant, so they should not go into a noisy place. The woman promised to give them a quiet room, replying that they were a wonderful couple and wished them an easy birth. Leaving the hotel, hidden under a wig, Lillian thanked the dark-haired Eugene. Entering the room and taking off her wig, Lillian noted that she would never want to get pregnant. Eugene said that she would have to be patient, since now they would change their disguises too often. Looking at Eugene taking off his wig, Lillian was silently surprised at how much a person can change with the help of makeup. They continuously looked at each other. Lily was the first to break the silence, asking what the guy was looking at. Eugene grabbed her chin, telling her that her skin was so white and soft that putting makeup on her was a pleasure. She asked, confused, why he was touching her cheeks, to which Eugene, laughing, replied that he was her husband. The guy reminded her to put on a mask before going to bed, to which Lily responded with horror that she didn't have to go that far. Eugene said it was necessary, and that he did it every night too. Lily imagined it and didn't like it. He asked if she really thought her white skin would last forever. Lillian realized in horror that she was no longer an archduchess, so she would now have to worry about herself. She asked if Eugene came from a noble family, to which he replied that he only knew the basics of disguise. He also added that he needed to take care of himself so that a beautiful woman like Lillian could love him for a long time, adding that today's soup was very tasty. The guys decided that first they need to go to the south, because a lot of time has passed since their escape, which is the reason for moving as far as possible from the north. As Eugene pulled a thread from his clothing, he said it wouldn't be easy, and Lillian didn't understand why. The guy said that Lily, as an archduchess, should know that the Knights of Castle Nord are known for their strength. Lillian added that if they were far from the city, it would be more difficult to contact the Emperor. Eugene clarified what she was talking about. Lily told him not to pretend he didn't know, because she couldn't hire him without knowing anything. She said that she was aware that Eugene was the Emperor's man, and that he had come for her on his orders. Meanwhile, at the Batswick estate, Sister Lily rushed to her brother, shouting that a letter had arrived from her son-in-law. She said that tomorrow they need to go to Castle Nord. The brother asked if she really didn't care that their sister ran away from there in the middle of the night. Taking her hand, the guy asked if she remembered how Lily had recently written and asked them about a trip to the south, to which the girl replied that she remembered it. She noted that it was suspicious. The brothers said that suddenly they were the only ones who wanted to go on the trip. They decided that they needed to go because Lillian probably felt something and therefore wanted them to leave. Besides, it seemed to them that trying to escape without a divorce could not be characteristic of their sister. They thought that if they went, they would definitely be able to find out something. We are located in the northern part of the Arsenian Empire in Castle Nord. In Carlyle's office, everything is in complete disarray. He sits on the sofa, hanging his head in confusion. He ordered the guard to release the man and strengthen the investigative squad on the border with Amarin. The guardsman was very surprised by this order, because there is now a war in Amarin's territory, and if they suddenly appear nearby, then no one will clearly receive them friendly. The soldier added that if they force the neighboring state to cooperate, then perhaps they will start a war against them. Carlyle said that he did not care about the opinions of neighboring kingdoms, and that they were not afraid of war.